Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about a statement that came from a source that demands attention, not because of who it is about, though that is obviously part of why we are here, but because of who said it and what the full weight of their professional history means when placed alongside the specific claim they made. We are talking about Diplo. And we are talking about what Diplo said about his collaboration with BTS, and specifically about the qualities he witnessed in Jimin and the group during the creation of the Ararang album in a moment of complete, unprompted, red carpet honesty that has been resonating through the music industry ever since. Before we get into the specific statements and what they mean, let us spend a moment understanding who Diplo actually is, because his name gets mentioned frequently enough in music contexts that it is easy to lose track of the specific and extraordinary scope of what he has built. Thomas Wesley Pence, known professionally as Diplo, has been one of the most consistently significant forces in global electronic and popular music for 3 decades. He is not a flavor-of-the-month producer who found his moment and wrote it. He is someone whose career has defied the normal cycles of relevance and obsolescence that define the modern music industry, reinventing himself and his sound multiple times while remaining at or near the center of whatever conversation about contemporary music was happening at any given moment. Diplo has been in the music industry for 30 years, and those 30 years have included collaborations with an almost incomprehensible range of artists across an almost incomprehensible range of genres. He produced tracks for MIA that helped define the global bass movement of the mid-2000s. He co-founded Major Lazer, whose track Lean On became one of the most streamed songs in the history of music at the time of its release. He co-created Jack U with Skrillex, producing Where Are You Now featuring Justin Bieber, which won the Grammy for Best Dance Recording. He worked with Beyoncé, with Usher, with Snoop Dogg, with Thomas Rhett in the country space under his country alter ego Thomas Wesley. He is one of the few producers in the world who can credibly claim to have shaped the sound of multiple genres simultaneously, over multiple decades, without losing the ear of the audience or the respect of the industry. That is the person who stood at the Fanatics Super Bowl party in February 2026, spoke to TMZ on camera with no particular incentive to be effusive, and said clearly, directly, without hedging, that his collaboration with BTS on the Ararang album was going to be the biggest thing he had ever done. In 30 years. After Beyoncé. After Major Lazer. After Jack U. After everything. BTS. Jimin and 6 other extraordinary people in a studio, creating something that Diplo, who had been in every room and worked with every name, called a career-defining project. Speaking at the 2026 Fanatics Super Bowl party, Diplo said about the BTS Ararang project, "I feel so lucky." And then, when pressed further on the scope of what he was working on, he said without hesitation, "For sure, it's going to be the biggest thing I've ever done." Sit with that for a moment. This is not a courtesy compliment. This is not the kind of thing a producer says because the people they are talking about are in the same building and it would be awkward to say otherwise. Diplo is known for being direct, sometimes uncomfortably so. He is not someone who reaches for hyperbole as a communication style. When he says something is the biggest thing he has ever done, he has a 30-year frame of reference to compare it against, and he has made that comparison honestly and arrived at this conclusion. That is a significant thing. He went further. He described what it was actually like to work with BTS in the studio, and this is where the testimony gets specific and where Jimin enters the conversation in a way that matters. Diplo said, "They're so hands-on. They're so creative. I can't believe it." And then, speaking about Jungkook specifically as an example of the quality he was encountering across the group, he said, "No auto-tune, perfect voice. Funny as hell." And he called BTS the biggest band in the world, adding that he thought the Ararang tour pre-sale was the biggest pre-sale of all time. Let us unpack what is happening in those statements, because there are several layers and each one is worth attending to. The first thing Diplo says is, "I can't believe it." Not "it was impressive" or "it was professional" or even "it was exceptional." I can't believe it. That is the language of genuine surprise, the language of someone who walked into a creative situation with high expectations and found those expectations exceeded in a way they did not fully anticipate. This is Diplo. He has been in the studio with Beyoncé. He has co-produced with Skrillex. He has worked at the absolute frontier of popular music production for 30 years. His threshold for surprise is not low. And BTS in the studio made him say, "I can't believe it." The specific qualities he identifies, hands-on, creative, are worth examining in detail. Hands-on means that BTS is not the kind of artist group that receives a production, records their parts, and leaves the creative decisions to the people they hired. They are present in the process. They have opinions. They contribute. They push back when something does not feel right and they drive forward when something does. That is not the norm in high-level pop music production, where the division between the performer and the producer is often clean and sometimes vast. The fact that Diplo, who has presumably worked with artists ranging from extremely hands-on to almost entirely passive, identifies this quality as notable tells you that BTS's level of creative engagement in the production process is genuinely unusual even at their level. Creative, as a descriptor from someone who produces music for a living, means something more specific than it might sound. It means that the contributions BTS made to the creative process were not just preferences or adjustments but genuine artistic ideas, things that added to what was being built rather than simply managing what was already there. It means that Diplo, one of the most creatively autonomous producers in the world, found himself in a collaborative situation where the collaboration was genuinely enhancing the outcome. Where the people he was working with were bringing things that he could not have brought himself. That is the specific quality of creative partnership that the greatest artists produce in the people who work with them, and it is the quality Diplo is pointing to when he says creative with that specific emphasis. The specific qualities he identifies, hands-on, creative, are worth examining in detail. Hands-on means that BTS is not the kind of artist group that receives a production, records their parts, and leaves the creative decisions to the people they hired. They are present in the process. They have opinions. They contribute. They push back when something does not feel right and they drive forward when something does. That is not the norm in high-level pop music production, where the division between the performer and the producer is often clean and sometimes vast. The fact that Diplo, who has presumably worked with artists ranging from extremely hands-on to almost entirely passive, identifies this quality as notable tells you that BTS's level of creative engagement in the production process is genuinely unusual even at their level. Creative, as a descriptor from someone who produces music for a living, means something more specific than it might sound. It means that the contributions BTS made to the creative process were not just preferences or adjustments but genuine artistic ideas, things that added to what was being built rather than simply managing what was already there. It means that Diplo, one of the most creatively autonomous producers in the world, found himself in a collaborative situation where the collaboration was genuinely enhancing the outcome. Where the people he was working with were bringing things that he could not have brought himself. That is the specific quality of creative partnership that the greatest artists produce in the people who work with them, and it is the quality Diplo is pointing to when he says creative with that specific emphasis. Now let us talk about Jimin in this context, because while Diplo's specific example of the qualities he encountered in the studio was Jungkook, the dynamic he is describing, the hands-on creative engagement, the relentless investment in the work, the refusal to simply deliver what is expected and settle there, is something that multiple other professional observers have independently identified as a quality that Jimin embodies more completely than almost anyone they have worked with. We have talked on this channel about Lee Hyun's testimony that Jimin was the most hard-working artist he had ever known. We have talked about HYB performance director Kim Min-sung's account of Jimin's meticulousness and dedication surprising everyone in the room. And we have talked about Suga's observation that if hard work is a talent, that talent belongs to Jimin. Diplo's testimony adds another layer to this picture from a different angle. Because what he is describing in his account of working with BTS is the specific quality that makes the Ararang album what it is, a record that sounds, to everyone who has listened to it closely, like something made by people who were fully present for every decision, who brought their whole creative selves to the process, who refused to leave anything on the table. And that quality, the quality of full presence and full creative investment, is exactly what the other testimonies are describing when they reach for words like meticulous and hardworking and always trying something new. They are describing the same thing from different vantage points, an artist whose relationship with the work is total. Who does not separate the performing from the creating? Who brings the same quality of complete engagement to the studio that they bring to the stage? Jimin's specific contributions to the Ararang album, the tracks where his voice and his creative input are most audible and most distinctive, reflect exactly the quality Diplo is pointing to. When you listen to Hooligan, which Diplo worked on alongside a remarkable collection of collaborators including Peg Mafia and Flume, you hear something that could only have been produced by a group that was fully present for every creative decision. The orchestral elements that contrast with the heavy trap production. The specific vocal choices in Jimin sections that push against the grain of the beat in ways that create a productive tension. The sense that every element of the production has been questioned and considered and arrived at through a genuine process of creative investigation rather than simply assembled from available parts. That is what Diplo means when he says he can't believe it. He means he walked into a session expecting competent, professional, probably impressive execution of the kind of pop music he has helped to define. And what he found instead was a group of artists who were genuinely, actively, passionately engaged in making something that none of them had made before. Something that each of them RM with his writing, Jimin with his performance choices, Jungkook with the voice that Diplo calls perfect, all 7 of them with their collective creative investment pushed further than it would have gone without them. Something that earned the description of biggest project of a 30-year career from a man who does not say such things casually. Diplo said the Ararang project would shock the world and be the craziest album ever. In the context of what we now know about Ararang, the chart performance, the critical reception, the world tour that is selling out stadiums on every continent, the AMA Artist of the Year win, the FIFA World Cup final halftime show booking, those predictions are not hyperbole. They are accurate. The album did shock the world, in the specific sense that the world did not fully know what to expect from a post-military BTS and found, upon receiving it, that what was waiting on the other side of those years of service was not a diminished or cautious version of the group but something more expansive, more mature, and more artistically confident than anything that came before. The Las Vegas chapter of the Ararang World Tour, 4 sold-out nights at Allegiant Stadium, each one drawing 65,000 people and generating the kind of energy that the Hollywood Reporter described as near-deafening even before the show began, is the live embodiment of Diplo's prediction. BTS sold out 4 nights at Vegas Allegiant Stadium as part of their Ararang World Tour, with the Bangtan Boys drawing as many fans for their 2026 shows as they did 4 years ago, and inside the stadium was illuminated in the light from the group's lightsticks with screens that were near-deafening. That is Diplo's prediction made physical. 65,000 people choosing to be in the same room 4 times over because the thing being made is exactly what he said it would be: the biggest, the craziest, the most significant. For the broader music industry, Diplo's testimony about BTS and specifically about the creative qualities he encountered in working with them is another data point in a pattern that has been developing for years. The pattern is this: when the most accomplished and most discerning creative professionals in popular music encounter BTS, and specifically when they encounter the members of BTS in a creative working context rather than simply as performers or public figures, the response is consistently the same. Surprise at the depth of engagement. Recognition of genuine creative intelligence. A specific quality of admiration that goes beyond professional courtesy into something that sounds more like genuine inspiration. This is the thing that Jimin represents in the context of that pattern. He is the member whose name appears most frequently in the testimonies of professional observers who are not K-pop insiders, who bring no particular prior investment in his success, and who are simply reporting what they observed when the work happened in front of them. The HYBE choreographer who said his dedication surprised everyone. The performance director who found his meticulousness unmatched. Suga, who said the talent of hard work belongs to him. And now Diplo, who has worked with the entire landscape of contemporary popular music for 30 years, standing at a Super Bowl party and saying without hesitation that this project, this album, this collaboration with these people is the biggest thing he has ever done. The Las Vegas shows added a new chapter to this story in real time. Whatever Diplo saw and heard and experienced in the studio when he was working with BTS on Ararang, he could see it manifested at scale across 4 nights at Allegiant Stadium: the same creative investment, the same quality of total presence and full commitment, the same refusal to deliver less than everything, now amplified by the specific alchemy of live performance and a live audience and the specific magic that happens in a room of 65,000 people who all chose to be there for the same reason. The biggest thing. The craziest album. The biggest band in the world. 30 years of professional reference, and this is where Diplo's career-spanning experience brought him to a Las Vegas stadium where Jimin was on stage and the world was, exactly as predicted, completely unable to look away. That is the story. A producer with 3 decades of perspective, who has worked with the entire landscape of popular music and developed the kind of discernment that only comes from that much experience, encountered Jimin and BTS in a creative context and came away changed in the specific way that genuinely extraordinary encounters change people who are paying close attention. He said what he saw. He said it clearly and publicly and without hesitation. And the album that came out of those sessions, and the tour that came out of that album, have confirmed, in the most public and most undeniable way possible, that what he saw was exactly what he said it was. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment below telling me which Erarang track you think most reflects Diplo's influence and how Jimin's contribution made it what it is. Subscribe if you have not already, and we will see you in the next one.